familiar names. I see some new names. Thanks so much, everybody, for coming. Hey, Doug, what's up? Hey, Dee Dee. Hey, Dion, what's up? Hello. Thanks so much for coming. I think it's going to be a good one. I don't think I know.
Oh, they're always good.
Yeah. No, I love this stuff. Well, I'm starting to geek out on like some questions and
No,
pertinence.
no, 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 no.
Let me
Don't
geek
you
out for
never
a
geek
second,
out on
man. Let me
anything, do
geek
you,
out.
Trevor? Come on. Feel better
No,
than that.
this is good because time management. Chelsey's going to speak to just the efficacy and importance of time blocking. I thought of you this morning, Jay, when I was kind of prepping for
Oh, I love time blocking.
well, you've literally, I watched you single-handedly change my sister's professional life with time blocking. And then my sister, I call her patient zero. She was our first employee. So it's like, and I've seen you do that and work that magic multiple times. So yeah, everybody, thanks so much for coming. Our friend Chelsey Newmyer is here. We were just talking about the Pacific Northwest. She's new to Washington and all that good stuff. So show her some, everybody, Ryan's going to put up Chelsey's LinkedIn profile, show her some love, and also her website. And then Rhino, if you could find the episode that Chelsey and I did, I want to say we did it in Q4 last year, Chelsey, on the
That sounds
podcast.
right. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, cool. Let's do that. Oh, hey, Gwen. Hey, Gwen Sullivan. Good to see you too. Everybody, thanks so much for coming. I think we've given everybody enough time to come
Yeah,
in.
let's go.
All right. Well, hey, my name's Trevor Nelson. Jason Ludlow is my partner. As mentioned, our esteemed guest, Chelsey Newmyer, a coach on the for-profit side and the nonprofit side. So a tremendous amount of experience with nonprofit fundraising. And listen, I wrote down a list. And I'm not projecting on anybody, but these are terms that we hear a lot. And let us know if these resonate with you. But burnout, turnover, overwhelmed, overworked, underpaid. I don't know if we can help you with this episode. Maybe we can later. Distracted, procrastination, uncertainty. That's one that's coming up a lot. And I'm not even chasing headlines by saying these things. So if any of those terms, resonate with you, and just whether you're running a two-person shop or you're running a multi-million-dollar nonprofit, if any of those terms resonate with you, well, I brought those up because we hear them a lot. And we're here not necessarily to address every single one of them today, but we're going to get to a lot of them. So we do have an expert. Chelsey, thanks so much for coming. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
We are, if you don't know who we are HGA Fundraising. We're the ones that bring you this free webinar series. And we provide the most profitable auction items in fundraising, perfect for your silent auctions, live auctions, raffles, so on and so forth. We also have amazing resources like our podcast, Hey Nonprofits Raise More Money, this webinar, and free coaching as well. I consider Jason to be the most prolific mind in fundraising. Cool little QR code, little nifty deal up there. We're super techie, at HGA. So you can sign up for a free coaching session as well at any time. We'll allude to that before the end of the show. And then also at the end of the show, we are going to give away an auction item that you can use at your next fundraising event. That's right. If you're live in attendance, we are going to do a random drawing for an auction item that you can use at your next fundraising
We're going to
event.
give away a trip.
A trip, an experience, could be a once in a lifetime thing for one of your donors, but it's going to definitely assured it's going to help you raise more money at your next event. So stay till the end. We call it stay till the end and win. But let's get back to the beginning. Chelsey, thanks so much for coming. Do those terms that I just mentioned to you, are they resonating with your clients and folks you're talking to? I'm not trying to, like I said, I'm not trying to project any negativity or anything like that. We're here to help. But talk to me about what you're hearing and what have you, and helping folks with their time.
Absolutely. So I think that burnout and overwhelm are coming up, frankly, in daily conversations, because burnout is that we don't have enough resources to do the work that we need to do. And that's a little bit different than just some of us who are a little bit, I don't know, I'll speak for myself, but a little bit of on the overworking side, right? Burnout's really about just not having the resources. And so many small nonprofits, so many even bigger organizations are facing that, with that turnover, with that expectation to do more with less every single day. So I really love talking through this with folks and just giving them as much advice and information as I can.
So Chelsey, I'm just going to ask, what's the number one thing that you see as a common across the board with all nonprofit professionals? And I'm going to be real specific about, because I know you do work in the for-profit, but nonprofit professionals, what's the number one thing that they're missing out on?
In terms of time management, in terms of
Yeah,
burnout,
yeah, just in time. Yeah, time.
Oh,
Yeah, with their time and how they operate and run themselves.
sure. I think it's that there's the expectation to do more with less every day. And so with that comes those folks who have an incredible institutional knowledge who aren't necessarily capturing it. So that person leaves for whatever reason, and organizations are constantly reinventing the wheel unnecessarily. So I think that's where a lot of the organizations I work with are struggling because they have great people or people who've been there for a really long time and they retire or leave. And I said they didn't take the time to capture the processes that they were using or to train anybody on the tools that they were using. And so now the organization has to kind of reinvent the wheel and waste or take a lot of time and energy to do that.
So, so if that's the case, and that's the biggest thing, what is like for somebody sitting here going, yeah, I don't have time to turn around and, go to the bathroom, much less, trying to do this. But we understand that sometimes there's necessary things. So what is a simple segue or something that they can do to start that process to get that ball rolling?
I think you have to think about it as a project management, right? So you're not going to sit down and write all of your SOPs in one day at one time. That is overwhelming, and very frankly, people don't have time for it. So make sure that it is, broken up in small steps. Dedicate a retreat day to it where you're all spending time and have planned ahead to put that on your calendar to work on those kinds of things. Or like I said, break it up into smaller pieces and take it week by week. But either way you do it, making sure that it's a priority amongst all those other pieces, it can be really, really important for the long-term success.
Okay.
awesome. Getting everybody in the same room, so to speak. I had a
Yeah, absolutely.
Jay. Am I interrupting? You have a question?
Oh, no, go ahead. I will get to what I get. I'll get to the next part. I've got two or three things. I think it's fun. I was going to talk about time blocking for a minute because I think that's,
Yeah.
you know, kind of one of the things where I was going. I think you're so right as far as having a job description, understanding what people do, because I think a lot of times we get caught up and we really don't realize what all and Dion do on a daily basis. We think we do, and we see do certain things we know, but there's those underlying other pieces that just happen over time, over the last 5 years that they've picked up and do that aren't really visible.
Yeah.
And you don't even know that they're doing them until all of a sudden they're not being done. And you're like, oh my gosh, what happened? And that goes on for people trying to take a vacation, somebody gets ill, somebody, has to go take care of a relative, all the things that happen in life. And I think to your point, Chelsea, taking some time, we started ours and it took probably 6 months to
Yeah.
go through for our booking
Mhm.
team. It's a really in depth. There's a lot of things that they have to know, and we put it all on SharePoint. So I mean, that's just a thing with Microsoft that we put it all on. But
Absolutely.
that way, all of our processes, all of our duties, everything is there step by step from one to another. And then they, on a quarterly basis, do a review to make sure that everything's updated. I think that's what they're doing anyway. I see. That's one of those things
Well,
that's
we
kind
hope
of out of
we hope
sight, out of
so.
mind. But I'm pretty sure that on a quarterly
Yeah.
basis, they go back and update it to make sure that they're staying up with it because it was
Sure.
such a heavy lift to get it done. But once it was done, boy, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
And, it really streamlined our processes. And I think that's, you know, because if you do that with everybody in your company, in your organization, you really come to find that there are things out there that are critical to your mission that are being done by somebody you didn't even realize you just forgot about it, didn't even know it, especially for executive directors. And we know that executive directors for the majority do a lot of the heavy lifting and a lot of these tasks themselves. But then all of
Absolutely.
a sudden they need to they want to take a vacation and
Yeah.
stuff's got to get done. How do they get it done?
Can I piggyback on that real quick though?
Mm.
When you say that, it sounds like when you're in those positions, I wanted to say like a no, it was like you don't have to do it all. Right? Like you just have to do what you do and do it really, really well, right? When you say time blocking, we went kind of wide lens, and I want to get into like more myopic focus on time blocking. Something I've been wanting to ask since we decided that we were going to do this episode, Chelsea, was how do you and how it pertains to time blocking? Because I it's kind of like chasing every to do. I got to do this or I got to do that, and I want you to talk about a couple of things. I want to talk about the misnomer that is multitasking, and how
Mm,
it can completely dilute your time blocking, right? And then also,
yeah.
I want you to talk to, and I'm not saying you have to believe one side or the other, the just the power of no and how it pertains to, you know, how it pertains to setting priorities for the work, especially right now. It just seems like this is a very, very unique time for so many organizations with the turnover, with the burnout, with the uncertainty, with where am I going to get these dollars and fill in the blank, so to speak, or how am I going to continue to cultivate these relationships? And I think, once again, just my own opinion, there's a lot of power in no
So,
as it applies to
Hmm.
prioritizing
hey,
your time.
Trevor, I think that's a
Yeah.
really good point. But before we
Yeah.
do that, I think there's probably some folks out here that are going to listen to this. They're going to go, okay, y'all keep saying time block. What in the
Sure.
world does that
Yeah,
mean?
let's identify it.
So, yeah,
Let's
so
define it.
Chelsey, why
Yeah.
don't you tell
Yeah.
us how you go about with time blocking and how you would describe that?
Love it.
Yeah, so it's really just an approach that you can use to set up your calendar for the week, for the month. There's a lot of different approaches to this. I don't think it's really a one size fits all. My whole approach is that productivity is personal, so we have to figure out what works best for you. And quite frankly, like for me, I time block maybe 2 or 3 days in advance, but I can't do my whole schedule because there's just too much uncertainty, and then I'm just wasting time moving things around. So even if you just do it one day at a time, there's a lot of benefit to just looking at your to-do list and then actually scheduling on your calendar when you are going to accomplish each task and batch as much as you possibly can, because that batching, to your point, Trevor, helps you avoid multitasking. That context switching is what takes up a lot of our time. There's a lot of science and research around how much brain power and time and energy it takes to, if you're interrupted in a task or you have to switch from one thing to another, your brain just takes a second to,
I'm
or
so
more than
guilty of it. Is why I bring it
to,
up. I'm
yeah, to
so,
kind of
yeah.
catch up.
Yeah.
So multitasking is, or time blocking is a way to prevent multitasking or minimize it as much as we can. And it also is so eye-opening because I'm so guilty of this. I will put way too many things on my to-do list. And then when I actually kind of block out my day, I'm like, there's no way I'm going to get to all of this stuff. And as if we can put it on our calendar ahead of time, then you can start making some of those tough decisions about, okay, what actually has to get done today? What could I possibly do a little bit faster? What could I delegate to someone else, and start making those decisions. But if you just are kind of brute forcing it with a to-do list and not enough time, then you're just going
Uh,
to end up feeling really defeated at the end of the day because you didn't accomplish a goal that frankly wasn't accomplishable
you're not going to
from the
stack a lot
start.
of wins that way. Yeah.
So I'm going to ask you, Chelsey. So so what I always have people do whenever I do a time blocking exercise with them, I always tell them there's two things that you want to put on there. One is the time allocated, and two is the task.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Like for example, I'm going to put
Absolutely.
30 minutes on my call, and I'm going to make 3 phone calls to new donors that I haven't talked to during that time. Now notice I said there's either 30 minutes or three calls. Because if I get through my 3 calls and I've got 15 minutes, I'm going to reclaim that time for something else that I need to do. But if I happen to get on a call with somebody and I talk to Trevor and we start talking, we spend, 20 minutes talking and I've still got 2 calls to make, I can still get that done. And I always, because a lot of times we think, oh, I've got to do that. I made 3 phone calls, left 3 voicemails. Now what? I guess I got to make more calls. I think that we over promise, to your point about task list, that we put too much on there because we expect so much. Well, if I can make 3 calls, I can make 30. I mean, you see, I can make 30 phone calls. Well, you probably can't.
Yeah.
It's not realistic. And that way, if you have that time block, you can reclaim that time, I call it, and all of a sudden for something else. Kind of like when you have an hour for a meeting and everybody gets done. Around here, okay, well, we're all going to get 20 minutes back today, so let's get out of
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
Instead of just sitting there just burning
Sure.
through it because we dedicated an hour.
Yeah.
I also really like that you said that you listed how, like exactly what that task is, the 3 names. I would even go, you could even be more specific and put the 3 people you intend to call, right? Make sure that you're not taking time to make that decision. You're not using the 30 minutes to look up their phone number to figure out who you're going to call, right? Get all of the information you need so that when you sit down for that time block, you're super prepared. And
Is it better now?
I love your point too that if you finish faster, you get to decide what you do at that time, whether you go take a quick walk, whether you keep moving through your list. But when we have that level of specificity, you also know exactly how to start and exactly how to end, which is so, so important when you're making out your to-do list. And kind of what I was saying to that at the beginning with the SOPs, your to-do list is not going to be write all my standard operating procedures. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's not the to-do list item. You're going to
Right.
get more specific than that. And that's how we can time block in a really strategic and appropriate way.
Love it. Love it. Well,
Cool.
that begs the question where I want to, Jay, and I don't want to get off time blocking necessarily too far, but it's like, that begs the question about consistent, focused effort over time
Oh
and how
yeah.
that is
Yeah.
such a powerful tool. Jason and I have been preaching that to our team, and obviously we see the fruits of that labor, right? But Chelsey, talk about how that affects folks in the nonprofit, in the nonprofit space, and it just that, and how it relates to time blocking, that consistent, focused effort over time, and then also not expecting everything to happen in a 5-day window, right? Like and expectations and whatnot. Speak to that if you don't mind.
Sure. I mean, I think with all, especially in the major gift officer world, right, that is just about making the calls, doing the
Yeah,
follow-up, right? That is that consistent follow-up because you have to have that number of touch points in order to, move that donor through the solicitation cycle.
yeah,
So as with the time blocking, again, some people like to set it up where every Monday at 9 o'clock, I am making my phone calls, right? And they're able to be that level of consistent with it. For some, that's uncomfortable or just it ends up being more work to reschedule things. So as long as you know what your top three priorities are for the week and you can really make sure that you're digging into those
yeah,
and doing those either first, right? You're going to eat that frog every day and you're doing that work,
yeah.
or you're finding that kind of optimal time in the day where you can focus on it. I am also a sucker for a reward because I don't like cold calling. I know it's part of the gig. I know I got
Right,
to do
right,
it,
yeah.
but I don't
I
like
don't know
it.
very many people that
So,
do. Yeah, yeah,
right. So what is the reward I'm gonna, kind of treat myself to at the end of doing that task that I don't really want to do instead of
yeah,
procrastinating, right? Because
yeah,
that's what can often happen is if we're struggling with it or if there's friction in some way, we're gonna inevitably procrastinate.
yeah,
And that's just gonna get, buried along the way and we're gonna get more and more behind.
yeah. Have you worked with a tremendous amount of these major gift officers or even like mid-level folks that, are making those calls and that have like even, professionals once again, or maybe they're starting a new campaign or whatnot. Have you, I'm assuming you have, but, working with these folks, what has got them if they've felt stuck? Or they're like, hey, Chelsey, I'm using this, and they expect too much too fast. Or, you know what I'm saying? Or how do you get them over the hump of this, like almost kind of like a writer's block, but more like a mental block of like, how do I get over this hump and just start, it's like, do you do it like Jason says, hey, make 3 calls a day. Let's just do it and let's meet in 3 weeks. Let's just talk then. Like, give us, some insight, or even like a case study or some real life, example where someone, use this to get them over the hump, so to speak, by using time effectively.
Sure. I mean, I feel like there's a lot of different ways I can go with that
Yeah.
question.
Yeah.
And sometimes, every gift officer is a little bit different. Everybody's motivated by some different things. Sometimes for me anyway, it was just doing the work, right? Like I
Yeah.
just kind of printed out my portfolio and, wrote the emails, and just did the work, right? I set an hour on my phone, and just kind of barreled through. Sometimes you just need a change of location. I
There
did
you
my
go.
best
Yeah.
work like at a coffee shop or even just in a different room of the house because I was
Yeah.
just less distracted by the things that were pulling me away from that task.
Yeah.
But I also think that any kind of if you have a bigger office of accountability or groups like this where there's, some other folks that you can connect with, be like, oh, I'm really don't want to do this, or I'm really struggling. And,
Yeah.
you can all, do it together, right? Or keep each other posted on your progress. That accountability and making it a little more engaging or gamified can be a great way to get gift officers motivated too.
I love that. I love having a scoreboard and friendly competition and sharing not just the
Mhm.
I call it hits and misses, but sharing the wins too, right? And then
Hmm.
of course, that comes with a level of being happy for everyone around you, right?
Sure.
For their success too.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
we're presupposing this, but yeah, I mean, sharing that and it's like, I don't care if they're hashtags on a whiteboard. It's like let's have a scoreboard or just talk about it and share it and what's working and this and that. I think there's a a lot of fruit that can come out of that for sure.
We're talking about phone calls and we're talking about, using that as an example of time blocking, but really everything in your day can be time blocked.
Mhm.
And I think that's really important
Agreed.
to understand the logistics of this. It
Agreed.
means that I'm going to look at my calendar on a daily basis and I'm going to say, okay, what are the things that I have to do and what are the best times? Now, I'm going to tell you how I approach it with like our team and people that I coach and
Sure.
things like that. And I want to do that because Chelsea's right. Everybody has a little bit of different motivation. Everybody's going to have
Yep.
a different idea. I'm probably a little bit more militant in the way I approach it
Yep.
because if everything's negotiable, then everything's negotiable. And what I want to try to do is convert people to start thinking that these are non-negotiables.
Yep. Love it.
Because, like
Absolutely.
you said, well, something comes up. If, some big donor comes up and says, hey, how's 9 o'clock work tomorrow? And if I sit there and go, sure, I'll run over there and I cancel everything and I run over there to go see him, I don't know that that's just as effective. It's just as easy to say, I'm tied up at 9, how 10 o'clock work for you?
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
And I think
Absolutely.
but what happens is we realize we underestimate the importance and the value of our time and when
Hmm.
we have these non-negotiables. So, Trevor talked about his sister. So whenever Katie and I
Mm.
started working on her time blocking, we did it in 30-minute tranches. Everything was a 30-minute task, never more than that. And the reason is you need a break. You're going to want to get a break. Maybe you got to
Sure.
check your phone because what we would do is she had this really thing she had to really focus in. And about the time she'd get focused and she'd get an email, somebody would text her, call, something would come up and it'd just break her concentration. And then it would take her another 15 minutes to get back in the groove, to get back going. And it was just, and she'd get to the end of the day and just be so frustrated. So I said, we're going to do
Mhm.
30-minute tranches. At the end of 30 minutes, take a break, go get a drink, go to the bathroom, check your phone, see if something blew up. There is nothing, there's not any emergency that can't wait for 30 minutes.
Mhm.
Nothing. There's nothing
Yeah.
going to happen that 30 minutes is going to change one way or the other. It's just not. And if it is, I mean, they're just, they're so few and far between. It's probably the statistics of that happening are few and far between. So we did that. And what that did is it gave a peace of mind because now she knew what was going to happen without the interruptions.
Yeah.
And,
She had
we try to do
curbs.
that,
She had direction. Yeah.
and we teach people how to treat us in a way. And the thing is with
Mm.
somebody's calendar, it's blocked. If somebody
Mm.
has something on their calendar, it's there. If I put it on my calendar and if I say I'm going to have a meeting with Chelsea, there's nothing going to change it. I'm not going to change it. Now, obviously there's things like sickness, illness, kids, there's some
Yeah.
things that are negotiables, but we want to be really, really strict. And I think it's because you have to decide that your time is important.
How about
And,
the most important?
um,
Yeah.
who here sometimes feel like, I just like a show of hands, thinks that their time is not as important as everybody else's? Anybody ever feel that way? Anybody else? Got a couple. Couple of people are being honest out there. Okay. So, you got to think our time is the most valuable asset that we have. It is it.
The
There's
greatest
nothing
gift
more
you
that
can
we
give
have.
anyone too.
It does
Yeah.
not renew. It cannot come back. Once today is gone, it's gone forever.
Yeah.
I know that everybody here is in the nonprofit world. You're not in it for the money, right? Anybody in the nonprofit space for the money? Anybody? Ryan is. Okay, we know we got one.
Attaboy, Ryan.
He'll get his hand up. Attaboy, Ryan. So we know that we're not in this. It's because we love what we do. We love the mission. We care, and we want to do that. So that's why we're willing to do this. A lot of people on here I know are volunteers even. And I get, this drives me crazy because they start thinking, well, I'm just a volunteer. Well, so-and-so is just a volunteer. Your time is just as important as anybody else's. That donor that gives you a $500,000, right? He's thinking about writing you a $500,000 check. Yeah, it's a big deal. It is a big deal, but your time is just as valuable. And if you start thinking about it, not in an egomaniac,
Mhm.
way where you think, oh, my time's worth. Jason said my time's worth more than the billionaire. I don't mean it that way.
No.
But what I mean is, it is just important because the impact that you have on a daily basis and what you're able to accomplish affects. I mean, if you look at it from a global standpoint, millions,
Yeah.
billions of people. So take that time, look at your calendar, block that stuff off that's important to do, because we all have a bunch of crap.
Yeah,
Okay.
no
And I'm going
doubt.
to get off my soapbox and get back to Chelsea, but I just had to say that for a minute because I have just, excuse me, swallowed a bug. I have just coached so many nonprofits and so many executive directors out there, and you guys are just cramped on your time, and you're like, I
Hmm.
just feel like I'm being pulled in 19 different directions all the time. Remember the old
Yeah,
Stretch Armstrong toys? Those of us that are old enough to remember those,
yeah.
Sure.
and that's how you feel all the time.
But let's talk about that, Jay, with that expectation. Then I framed it earlier about just the power of saying no, and I want you to
Yeah.
kind of like double tap on that too, Chelsea, again, and just kind of like almost I kind of like wrote it down in my notes, kind of like the guilt that might come with saying no that some people have. And I'm saying this, I've been having some very interesting conversations with folks on the pod and okay, the you know what's going to hit the fan and whatnot. And now is the time for so many folks to be exceptionally choosy and deliberate and put a exceptional value on their time and be willing to say no, even if at the cost of a little bit of guilt or not, hopefully not hurt feelings. But you get my point. Like, how do we get folks to like use the power of no, I can't do that right now. You know what I mean? And remove that guilt because I know a lot of people do face. I've dealt with that myself and telling folks no, but I actually do think it's kind of a gift that you can teach yourself. Yeah,
Absolutely. And I'll definitely speak to that. And I want to just kind of back up on what Jay said too, is
yeah,
the what I reinforce with the folks that I work with is if you gave a great example of my time is blocked tomorrow morning at 9, but the donor says, "Hey, I'm free at
yeah,
that time," right? I I like to block in smaller foreshadowing because it allows me to just be really intentional. So what I teach is like that, just really being intentional with that time. And so what I want my clients to do is not just react to, yes, of course I'm free. Let me reshuffle my entire life, right? But making that be an intentional choice. It might be the right move to accept that 9 o'clock meeting and adjust your schedule. It might not be, but we have to put that pause in first before we just say yes. So to your point, Trevor, too, like that pause has to come before we just say yes, because the right answer might be no. And so it's
yeah,
really about being intentional with the time, intentional with our planning, and just paying attention to it instead of just brute forcing our way or doing things that we've always done just because that's the way we've always done it, right? We have to kind of personalize these strategies and be thoughtful about how we're setting those things up. But I talk quite a bit about people pleasing. I think I should have a whole like podcast episode about it if someone wants to check that out too.
yeah,
Because people are trained, especially in the nonprofit world, right? We are eager people. We are people, right? We like relationships. We want to be out there. We want to be having these conversations and supporting the mission of our organization. And so it's so easy to just say yes without putting that pause in. So
yes, yes,
my first piece of advice is when someone asks you for something, just pause, right? Just take a beat before you respond, because the answer might be no, and we can talk
yeah,
about that, but it also might be yes. It might be yes, but, or yes, and, right?
hmm,
There's a couple different answers that are possible, but
hmm,
we shouldn't just default to yes out of the gate.
yeah,
And then, if it is a no, I have this really funny story of my old inbox, my new inbox got merged. It was a disaster, but I was deleting out all of this old stuff. And it was all the emails from when I was in college,
hmm,
which is wild that I still had it in the first place.
yeah.
But I kept seeing as I'm deleting these emails, all of these apologies. I was apologizing constantly.
Oh
And it made me
gosh,
realize I'm not that sorry. Like
that's a
that
whole
email
nother
was
episode. That's a whole nother
right. Like
episode,
exactly, like
Chelsea.
my email response was like an hour or two after the email was sent to me.
Yeah,
I was not sorry.
yeah,
And so I think we have to just also put some barriers around the no's, because they don't necessarily need an explanation. They don't need an apology.
yeah,
It can just be, hey, I can't meet tomorrow at 9, but I can meet tomorrow at
yeah.
10. It's not, I'm sorry I can't meet at 9, because
Yeah.
your time is important. Your time is valuable, and you don't need to be
I love that.
apologetic for how you are choosing to use your time.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, I hear you.
Well, the most
I
successful
hear you
people
loud and
around in
clear.
this
Yeah.
industry, the most successful fundraisers, executive directors, directors of development, professionals, all around that, are very guarded with their time.
Hmm.
The ones that I know that are just crushing,
Yeah.
they guard their time so because they know how
Yeah.
precious it is. I've
Yeah.
only got so much time to get everything done. And
Yeah.
if I fall behind the curve, once they get behind that curve, it's really hard to catch
Mhm.
back up.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Agreed.
you know,
I
I
I hear
I
you
just
loud and
think that
clear. Yeah.
once you know, how much confidence does it give you, Chelsea, to know what I'm doing tomorrow? I know what I've got going on. I know
Yeah.
that I've got these things
Absolutely.
blocked off, and I know at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I'm going to check boxes that are going to help me to accomplish my mission.
Yep. Love it. Love
Absolutely.
it.
One of the biggest lessons I learned was, so I'm in meetings and I'm a consultant now. So I would get out in the meeting, I would get additional tasks, right? And one of the biggest lessons I learned was how to set a deadline and the expectation for your client. Because I can't remember which one of you said, like I think it was Jay who said, we teach people how we expect to be treated, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah.
had originally taught my clients to expect a really fast turnaround,
Yeah.
which wasn't sustainable for
Yeah.
me. And I didn't want to disappoint my clients. I wanted to deliver good work and I didn't want to stress myself out. So now even if I could get it done that afternoon, even if I could, I had nothing going on, which never happens, but even if I could, I say, I'll get that to you early next week, right? Because
See,
we
what you
have to
just
balance
said
ourselves.
is a point of
We
under
had to talk.
promise,
Yep.
over deliver.
We spoke about that this week with our
We
team.
talk
Yeah.
about it
Yeah.
all the time
Yeah.
about under
And
promising.
Dion had a very
Yeah.
nice comment I want to hit on too when you're done, Jay,
Yeah.
too, about the same
Yeah.
thing. Absolutely.
So we talk about that a lot around here because if I tell you I'm going to get it to this afternoon, but
Yeah.
then something happens and then I don't do it, well, then I'm back in I'm behind the curve. But if I tell you I'm going to
Hmm.
get it to you on Tuesday or
Yeah.
sometime next week, set that expectation, and then I get it to you tomorrow, then I've over delivered. I've over delivered on that promise.
I'm not saying that's a game at all. I'm not saying that we're
I'm
playing the
saying it
game by
is.
doing that.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
but I got to
claiming
be
it.
honest with
I'm
you. You're
putting my
setting up the
copyright
game
and stamp
for
on it.
success. Yeah, I mean, like it's
Yes.
that like when you lay that out to me, Jay, you're like, well, we'll tell them we'll have it to them by Monday. It's only Wednesday, but if we get it to my Friday, we win. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I love gamifying it that way because yes, you're
Well, because
over delivering.
how
Yeah,
many
it's
times
lovely.
do you go
Yeah,
and say, "Oh, I'll get that to you here in the next hour,"
yeah,
and
yeah,
then 6 hours later you don't? Then you are apologizing because you told somebody something
Right.
you couldn't
yeah,
deliver.
Exactly.
yeah,
And I
Yeah.
think and this goes back to Dion's point is if you're
yeah,
saying yes all the time and you're not able to deliver, that creates stress, anxiety,
yeah, yeah.
and you know, and quite frankly, people don't trust you because, well, you said you'd get it to me in
Sure.
an hour,
Yeah, it
Yep.
doesn't look
and you
Yep.
good. It
didn't.
It's
impacts your
worse than an honest
reputation.
no, she said. That's so
Yeah.
good. That's so good. Or
Yeah.
no, not right now. You know what's interesting? Yeah, that I was gonna not necessarily take a hard right turn, but I was gonna talk about just kind of like my own experience with um letting people hijack my time. My fault, not anyone else's fault. But as we've grown our organization and one Jason and the amazing people that we get to work with internally, not just our partners, but letting go and not micromanaging every little thing. Now, I'm not a natural micromanager. I'm a natural person that thinks they can handle a lot. Like I have a lot of plumbing or wide shoulders, whatever you want to call it, right? Um, and I often would take on too much. And with Jason's help and the help, once again, the help of folks that are on our team, and I feel really calm about it. And what I'm getting at is letting go of a lot of tasks that I don't need to have my hands and toes in every second because we've entrusted people on our team to do the job and empowered them to do the job really, really well has been such a huge learning experience for me. And also the reason why I brought it up is because I think it speaks to the value of your time. It's like, in a roundabout way, it also freed me up to go do what I need to do to push, to
Hmm.
grow, right? And so I'm not saying that everyone needs to have an organization. I mean, we're 21 strong by the end of this month.
23.
Yeah, right. It's like, right. But if you're only a team of three and you have volunteers and you have a committee and you have a board and you can, I'm not telling you about, I'm not really even talking about delegating because I don't even necessarily like that term, but just the things that you don't need to get involved in. It's just kind of like just a cautionary, encouragement, not to overdo that kind of stuff. Yeah, I appreciate you, Doug. Because Doug, I know that you wear a lot of hats and you're a doer, right? Like Doug's a great example of this. And I'm not projecting that you're horrible at it now, Doug, but I've been horrible at it. And trusting folks and I use the term empower. And I hope that's not a buzz term or too cliche, because that's exactly what we found ourselves doing. And our trajectory has just gone, it's just been amazing as a result. You know what I mean? I call it kind of like letting go, but it's freed up so much mind space. And I'd find myself overwhelmed. And then I wrote down in my notes today, it's like it turned into momentum, because now, you know what I mean? Like, it's so speak to that too, if you don't mind, like, just from like being, valuing your time and then also letting go of some tasks you don't need to do or be involved in, for instance.
Well, I mean, I can just speak anecdotally of places and shops that I've either worked in or consulted for. I was a consultant for their team. The ones that have, where the leaders have struggled, I'd even go so far to say has failed because they no
Yeah.
longer work for those organizations, is because they are micromanagers, is
Yeah.
because they are not empowering their teams.
Yeah.
And it creates a incredibly toxic workplace. It
Yeah.
creates a bottleneck
Yeah.
in getting out the door. And while very rarely is anything on fire in the
True.
fundraising world,
Yeah.
we do need to be quick, and we do need to respond quickly and keep things moving in order to get the solicitations out the door and get the events planned and make decisions. So absolutely, as much as you can, hire the right people. I think a lot of it is also that hiring piece, right? As you're growing, picking people who have a growth mindset, who are willing to learn, who are willing to grow, who are willing to try new things and don't need to be handheld, because I think that reinforces the micromanaging piece of it. A
Yeah.
lot of what we can do can be taught on the job, right? There is no,
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
I'm aware, undergraduate degree
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
fundraising. So we are all learning on the job, and you have to have that really those strong hires, and then kind of let them go and see what happens.
I
I got a
love it.
question real quick for everybody
Yeah.
listening. And if you're watching this on a recording, I'd love to have you make a comment down here and just tell us whenever you see this online. Who here has less than 3 full-time employees at your organization?
Yeah.
Just show of hands. That's all I'm looking for.
Or you put the number of folks at your organization in the chat too. If you like.
I'm really looking specifically for that less than 3. Okay, we've got 1. Who here has less than 5? Okay, got a few there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Cool.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to just share something with you, and this is something I know, having grown a lot of, been an entrepreneur my entire adult life, and been in several companies, had several startups. You cannot do it all on your own. You cannot do it all. You just can't.
From someone that's tried too, right?
You cannot,
you've tried.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You cannot do it all.
Yep.
So this is where I think, and I know, Chelsey, you speak on this and you talk about this and coach on this. That's why it's so important to clear out all the clutter and look at what are the things that are going to advance your mission and help you to hit your goals.
Yeah.
And that's got to be 90% of your focus.
Yeah.
We all get caught up in all this minutia, and every one of us do. There's not one person. I don't care if you're, if you're a Fortune 500, if you're a $50 million nonprofit or a $50,000. Everybody gets caught up in this where there's a lot of stuff. We get doing crap that doesn't mean anything.
Yep.
This is where I think is so important, because your time is so precious.
Yep.
That when you're doing things like blocking your time, coming up with your priorities, that you stick to those guns really, really hard. If you don't have any, because it's easy for us to sit here and go, well, I'm going to delegate this off to somebody else. If you've got somebody, but whenever you look behind you to delegate and you go, there's nobody there, it's just me.
Right.
Okay. And I had somebody tell one time, was coaching this lady, and she kind of stopped and she looked and she goes, I'm it. There's nobody else.
Yeah.
And so, you've got to be really, Doug, you're talking about this. You've got to just really cut out all the stuff that doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Because we all know that nonprofits have a few things that you have to do. You have to do donor development. You got to raise money. You also have to do whatever your program is. You've got to administer your programs. you got to talk to volunteers. You got to spread the word. You got all these things to do. And I think that, you can do enough of the things that you have to do, but you can't do it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important to understand, especially, and the world's worst I've ever seen about doing this are boards. Boards are, they think their number one priority is to find more stuff for the executive team to do. And even if it's an executive of one, they'll come up, hey, I think you guys ought to do this, 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 this.
Whole nother episode.
Yeah, exactly.
Another
Right.
episode.
So I guess where I'm pointing is, talk about that, Chelsey, finding those big rocks that are gonna make the difference, that are gonna help you to push your goal forward.
Identification.
Versus all this other stuff.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I love the big rock analogy. For those who haven't heard that before, there's some great YouTube great YouTube videos about like the
Yeah.
big, the professor with the vase, and he puts the big rocks in
Yep.
first.
Yep.
And I would say like honestly, the biggest rock is taking care of yourself, right? Especially in this space, it's a space of giving, right? Your programs are supporting other people, and I think we all too often, going back to the very beginning of our conversation, burn ourselves out because we're trying to do it all and we're not taking care of ourselves. And that's the first thing that gets kicked off the schedule. So as you're time blocking your day, put in time block your personal time.
Yeah.
Time block when you're going to go to the gym, when you're going to take your lunch, when you're going to relax. It's not weird to put Netflix for an hour on your schedule, because then you can sit there and you know that that's what's on your schedule and you've got nothing else that you need to be responsible for at that time. So I would say the biggest rock is making sure we're all taking care of ourselves. But then when it comes to the kind of logistics of just running the organizations, I define productivity as working on the right thing at the right time to help you reach your goals. So the part of that is we have to know what the goals are, because that allows us to identify the priorities, and that's the lens through which we make all decisions. So if a board comes to you and says, hey, you should go to this networking event, and it doesn't fall into, there's not going to be good donor prospects there. There's not going to be any money that I'm not going to walk away with a check from going to that event. And it's not supporting any of my programmatic pieces in terms of delivering things to the people who need the things that I create. Therefore, it doesn't deserve the time on my schedule. So making sure that we're really clear on the goals, and then using those as the lens, as the kind of filter that everything else goes through, and as you build your schedule.
Yep.
Would be my recommendation, because you're absolutely right, Jay. I mean, I'm a small business owner. I am the only person, right? So even if it's not a nonprofit, no one else is writing my social media content. There's no one behind me to do my billing. So I can fully appreciate how much is on people's shoulders as they're a one person or two person operation, and how they can really use and reinforce with their volunteers, reinforce with their board. These are our goals. This is what we need to execute this quarter, this year, this, whatever that may be. And if it doesn't fit into there, now's not the right time for it.
I didn't even like the idea. So well put, Chelsey. I mean, I like the idea of like, hey, this is our money goal. And if it doesn't fit through that filter, it's like, I listened to this beautiful rant from a gal named Julie Ordonez recently on a podcast. And she was talking specifically and like doing a role play type conversation, running, like does a solo pod like you know what I mean? Awesome. Rhino, also, while we're talking about, link to Chelsey's pod while we're here so everyone can see it and grab it in the chat if you don't mind, brother. But and she's like, hey, listen, I've got this goal. And she was role playing. She's like, and they wanted me to go, like you said, to the networking event. And it's like, no, I really can't make it. And as a matter of fact, I can't make it to this meeting that takes 90 minutes every 2 weeks. No offense to your meeting, but it's kind of like almost having like a difficult conversation. But it shouldn't be that difficult. She's like, and you can always go back to the goal. Jason and I, we always go back to the mission, tie it back to the mission. Yeah, it's because we have this $250,000 goal and we're going to send 250 kids to camp. So this is what we have to do. And it doesn't fit through that filter, then we're not doing it right now. You know what I mean? It's like, it's really okay. And I was like, oh my goodness. When I heard that, I was like, we got to have her on the pod. You know what I mean? We need to talk about this, because these are things that people need to do for themselves, for their time. for the mission, for the betterment of everything, right? I'm pretty passionate
And I
about
think,
it.
yeah, and it's a great, I think that's just, it's just about the mindset, especially as the executive director, as that lead, or as a board chair, right? Like, it's the mindset thing. You're not saying no. You're not being a negative Nancy. You're just making sure that you're focused on the right things.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
keeping in mind too, like the board is not bringing you these ideas, or your volunteers aren't bringing ideas
Yeah.
because they're trying to waste your time. They
Yeah.
they may generally think that they're really exciting, fun opportunities for you. So
Yeah.
thank them for thinking
Yeah.
outside the box. Be
Yeah.
grateful for that. But just again, constantly reinforcing, thanks so much for that idea. Now's not going to
Yeah.
be the best time for that because we're focused on XYZ. So it also just that mindset, especially if you are a natural people pleaser and want to say yes all the time, you
Yeah.
can be grateful for that opportunity. You can be really excited about that opportunity and still say no. Now it's not the right
Mm.
time.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. I want to say also just from like just witnessing it in real time and seeing it, and a lot of these characteristics we're talking about are strong characteristics and skills that are possessed by leaders, by good leaders, right? And I know a lot of folks in attendance and a lot of folks that are going to be watching this as recording are leaders of organizations or aspire to be. I will tell you that level of focus and certainty that you're talking about when it comes to what fits through the filter is contagious. It's infectious. It gets everyone pulling in the same direction. You might have to repeat it 10 times to 10 different people, 10, 10 weeks in a row. It doesn't matter. You stay true to that one thing. Another great book that was just given to me and Jay called The One Thing. Really, really good. But you focus on that, it's contagious throughout your organization. You know what I mean? And you
Well,
stick
if the
to it.
your point, Trevor, if the leader's scattered and all over the place, so is the
Man,
organization.
no good. No
Yeah.
good. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you're the leader, and sometimes you have to just stop and go, okay, everybody's kind of scattered.
What's
We're
the
all over the place.
message? Yeah.
Instead of me looking at everybody else, I need to look at myself.
Yeah.
And if I start these practices of time blocking, and I start doing these things of setting
Yeah.
priorities, and I start saying no to the things that aren't part of our mission, again, to Chelsea's point, not to be a negative Nancy or not to belittle those things, but just to simply focus, because I do have a finite amount of time.
Yeah.
And what we see, and Chelsea, I think this is your point of all this, is the stress from being overworked, underpaid, underappreciated, and all those things that go along with that start to dissipate, because you're seeing the joy of accomplishment. You're seeing the mission being hit. You're seeing goals being moved. You're seeing lives being changed because of the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And that's what this is going to free you up to do.
Yeah.
And so all these things that we're talking about, Chelsea's talking about, that she's promoting out here and working with organizations to coach them on, that's what it is. That's what the end game is.
Yeah.
You're going to sit there and find out, you feel like you're just slipping and sliding and spinning your wheels. And as you get to the end of the week and you're like, I don't feel like I got anything done.
Yeah.
These are some things you can do. Set up your calendar, start saying no,
Yeah.
protect your time. Get the people around you that are the closest around you, and have an uncomfortable conversation with them. Sometimes you have to say, look,
Yeah.
what we've been doing is not working. We got to do some changes. We're going to start getting really prioritized. Watch you know what? And Chelsea brought it up. I would recommend everybody here, as soon as you get off this, okay, the first thing, take the survey when you finish this. Please there's a little survey is going to pop up. Please take that survey for us. It means a lot.
Survey. Go ahead.
2, go to YouTube, look up Big Rocks, and it'll be there's like 50 different deals on it, and it talks about it, and it really helps you understand why it's so important to focus on those first.
Yep.
Because all the rest of the stuff, it's either going to get done or it didn't matter in the first place.
Or
Most
it
of
doesn't
the
need to
time,
get
it didn't
done
matter
right
in the
now.
first place.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's really, really good. So
Yeah.
Chelsea, we're going to wrap up here in just a minute, but I want to give you the closing word, if that's okay, and let you
love
just
it.
kind of give a deal to everybody.
Oh, sure. Well, I mean, thank you so much for this opportunity. I think that, again, what I can leave people with is to personalize your productivity, right? So pay attention to what you're doing, be intentional with your time, and just take a week, take next week to before you do something or before you schedule something, just think about it. Is now the right time? How am I feeling? Is this energizing me? Is this draining me? And start tracking some of that, because from there we can make better decisions about how we're using our time when we're doing the activity. And you'll see your productivity, your energy really skyrocket throughout the
Yep.
time. And
Yep.
thank you both very much for your time. And I think all my links are there, so you can follow me. My podcast is going to be renamed very
Cool.
soon, so
Nice.
you can follow that link. It should all still work, but you may see a new name and some new branding. I'm shaking things up in my own business, so things are getting some new color
We
schemes, new
should.
name.
We
So I'm really
should shake
excited about
things
that.
up. I love
Yeah,
that. We should shake. Yeah, we got to have these
Yeah.
conversations. Be a little disruptive. It's good. It's good. Thanks so much for
I was
coming,
ready for a
Chelsey.
change. Thank you
No, it's
all.
great. It's great. Yeah,
Okay.
I love this kind of stuff because it bleeds into so many different pieces, being kind to ourselves, being like very, very protective of our time. And like you just said, if things don't fit that certain criteria and they drain you, you got to cut them. Got to cut them. Yeah. What do you got
All
going on,
right,
brother?
I'm going to
What do
share
you got
my
going on?
screen. I'm going to share my screen. Here it comes.
Share your screen.
And let's see.
What do you got? You got anything cool up there?
Oh, I tell you what, that's all I have is stuff.
You got a grocery list. What do you got?
Yeah.
Some note. What's going on? Chat GPT. What do you got going on up there?
Yeah, there we
What's your
go.
screen?
All
Hey,
right.
cool.
So, and I have a winner,
Okay.
and it is Kim Easley. Kim Easley, you're the winner. Yeah, give
All
Kim a big
right.
hand. All right. Reach up
Way
there,
to go,
touch the
Kim.
screen. We got to get the button spinning. And here we go. We're going to see what trip she wins.
Nice. Way to go, Kim. Right
All
on.
right.
Costa Rica.
Costa Rica, all
Woo!
inclusive for two. So you get to
That
use
can raise
that.
some serious money. And we're going to help
Right.
you use that to raise money, not projecting like you don't know how to use it already, Kim, but we are going to have a team member reach out to you and deliver that item to you that you can use for your next fundraising event or any fundraising event that you choose. And we'll coach you up on how to use it and raise the most money with it. So how fun is that?
Hey,
All
scan the
right.
QR code. Scan the
Yeah.
QR code right here if you want to sign up. Free hour of coaching. Love to visit with you about any fundraisers or any anything you want to talk about that. And
Awesome.
Chelsey, thank you so much for
You
being
rock, Chelsey.
Really
Thanks for the
appreciate your
time.
Yeah.
Appreciate you
Thanks,
giving
everybody.
giving everyone your time. It
Thank
means
you
a
all.
lot. Thanks everybody for coming. Yeah. Appreciate you, Kim. Kim, everybody, if you got anything out of the episode, do us a favor, share it. Share the next webinar invite with someone in your network or someone that will get some value out of the content. We really appreciate you all. Thanks so much for coming. Thank you,
See
brother.
guys. Thank
All
you.
right. Later, everybody.